live. Let's see. We are live. Good evening. I'm Rarchar with Comanche County GOP podcast number 2, episode 2, with Sharla Hildner, the current chair, Dr. Lisa Pleasant, and Dr. John Cox. Sharla, you want to go ahead and start this off?
Our focus this evening is education in Oklahoma. And we're pleased to welcome back Dr. Pleasant from the Lawton Public Schools. And joining us this evening is Superintendent of PEGS Public Schools and candidate for Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. John Cox. We have about 30 minutes together tonight, so if you have any questions or comments, drop it in the thread and we'll do our best to get to it. And Dr. Cox, thank you for being here. Let us begin with this. Why are you running, and what do you believe is the most urgent issue facing Oklahoma schools right now?
Oh my goodness. And there are so many issues, but I think why I'm running is because I just really care about the future of our kids. And I look at my 6 grandchildren, and I got 2 babies coming in April and July, and I want to make public school the choice. I love school choice. I see that throughout the state where parents actually need that in certain areas. But I have to make public schools the choice of, for my babies. And if we do that for them, the other 690,000, it's going to uplift them and make it a better place for them. So that's where my heart is. And this run isn't about John Cox. This is about actually taking care of children and giving them opportunity, and as it should be.
Well, this isn't dead airspace. We hate dead airspace. So let me ask you a question.
I was wondering. I didn't know if I stunned you or not. So
no, I'm stunned. So we had talked before the show. You're crisscrossing all over Oklahoma. Which counties are you focusing on during this campaign?
Well, I love the rural areas, and I think that's who I represent because I've been in rural for 40 years, actually, in public schools, and then 32 in my rural school. So those are who I need to know, let them know that I do care and I value them. The majority of the voters are in Oklahoma County and Tulsa County and the surrounding counties around them. And so we have just worked tirelessly the last, probably 10 months at least. But then I laid the groundwork in the last election for this to happen. So name recognition is there. And the message is resonating all throughout every area I go to, because they believe in what I'm trying to do. And when I say it's what we are trying to do.
So it's really important for voters like me to really get to know my candidates. Can you tell us, like, your background? Tell us where you come from. Why, little old teacher from Lawton, Oklahoma. How do I connect with you, right? So can you tell us more about John and John's journey to get here?
Yeah, so my mom and dad, they moved to California when I was a baby, and my dad was a Church of Christ preacher. And so growing up in Adair County, I really didn't know it, but my mom and dad were Republicans in Adair County, and there's probably 5 maybe in the entire county. But that's who my mom and dad was, and that's how they raised me as a conservative person. I didn't know that. I just knew that Church of Christ background, and then eventually went to the Christian church, which was Church of Christ with music at the time. So I grew up that way, and graduated from Jay as valedictorian there, a rural school. And so that was exciting. And, I have a brother-in-law and a brother who were former teachers and superintendents. So it was kind of in the family. I have a couple of uncles that were superintendents, and I have sisters and sister-in-laws who were teachers, several nieces and nephews that are teachers that are currently in the profession, and I see what they go through, on a, in the trench level. And so I just have that passion, and I'm at that time in my life where I am what they call self-actualized. And so it's time for me to give back as much as I can give back in the time I have left. And I see what needs to be done because I live it every day. And I think that's what resonates with teachers and even, your support staff that are out there. They know I understand what they do and how valuable they are
Mm,
to what we have in public schools. And, there's 80,000 of us out there. And right now, I'm the only one that's a part of those 80,000. The other ones running, they're not a part of that. And so I just love what I'm doing. And that's how I grew up and how my way out of poverty, because mom and dad ran a restaurant when I was a little kid. And that's when I knew I was good at math because I ran the register at 10 years old. And we cleaned tables, washed dishes. You do all those things and you learn the parts of business. And I didn't realize we were poor. I just knew that mom and dad ran a restaurant so we could eat. And so, that's how we survived. And I just want to make it a better place for my grandkids and, for all of our kids. I think we've gotten away from learning and doing the basics. And I see that. I see that as a sitting superintendent. And, it's time we have that knowledge and that experience
mm,
in that
mm.
office. It's so important.
Dr. Cox, when you get elected, what does your first 90 days look like in your as a state superintendent? What do you plan to do?
Oh,
What's your mandate? And how do you plan to communicate that with your constituents, the parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, the
yeah.
teachers, in your first 90 days?
I'm extremely excited about that. And I say day one when we step in there will be a public relations campaign that it's extremely important. It's not a waste of money, but it's important that our teachers know that they're on the pedestal, that I can uplift them. It's a great profession. And I think that will help start recruiting our young people to come into the profession. And it'll actually give a breath of fresh air to our career teachers, our teachers that have been with us and are valued. And I think that is so important day one, but also academic wise. We're going to move right into our plan for reading. And I know all the governor's candidates have all their plans and the legislature's talking about it, but in my world, basic phonics and reading foundation is so important to everything a person does for the rest of their life. And also, I'm a math person.
Mm-hmm.
So foundational math, I'm not talking algebra, geometry, calculus, all those things. I'm talking about foundational math, being able to multiply in your head and being able to take fractions to decimals to percents.
Mm,
Things that they're going to use in every profession, for the rest of their life. And so if we can make that foundation immediately and give confidence to our schools, I think we raise everything up. And really, I've been promising that we're going from 50 to 25 in my first 2 years. And so we go beyond the 90 days, and the focus is really on what type of metrics is being used, because I know that I live that, and so we can work with the metrics. And I think if people start seeing us move up from 50 to 45 to 40, they're going to get excited, and businesses are going to get excited. I think even people not connected to schools will really like what we're doing because it's going to impact everybody.
So,
So
Dr.
can I
Cox, I have a
follow?
question. I'm not in the classroom. What would be what is your turnaround? I'm assuming that to go back into phonics instead of sight words. I'm raising 3 grandchildren, so we're talking
Yeah,
about these things all the time. And
right.
and as a parent, I find it kind of intimidating and scary. But what would be the turnaround time do you expect for us to onboard this new reading, the new reading program that you're?
Sure. So it's a daunting task, I will say, because there's around 1,500 elementaries across the state, and I'm wanting to train every teacher and even special needs teachers in those pre-K through fifth grade, give them the opportunity to
mm,
do science of reading and actually learn how letters correspond to each other. But I have to provide the resources for that because you can't do it while the kids are learning. You have to do it off time, like in summer. And so we will provide stipends to get those done. So turnaround, a lot of us are already doing this. In my school, we're already doing what they call the Mississippi Miracle. We do the plan that Oklahoma put in years ago that we went away from, and Mississippi went on with it, and then they were successful by finishing the plan, I don't see the turnaround being a 5 to 10 year thing. I see the turnaround being immediately. Um, but I do know, even from COVID, like our kids that are in fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade right now, it really had a major effect on their learning. And you had mentioned, Charlie, you had mentioned sight words. Phonics is more learning how letters correspond to each other. And then sight words are basically short words that they can memorize really quick and go. Uh, So some kids need a little bit of the blend of that. But
Mm,
if you teach our non-readers how to actually put letters together, it's going to be valuable to them. Those kids you would think may struggle the rest of their life, they can learn to read that way. And but it's a monumental task, but I think we have to do it if we're going to uplift Oklahoma and change things, because I am really, it hurts my stomach when I hear that seniors in high school are graduating and not being able to read. And
mm,
also, you talk about trades areas, which I do everywhere. The 80% of the kids not going to college or finishing, they have to be able to read those trades manuals. And so I have to get them to a point where they can do that. And we can do it, and we have to start doing it. And I'm excited that it's the focus of everybody, because when I get in there in 8 months from now, it's going to be easier to implement, but it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be rolling up the sleeves and working.
mm,
So if I can, it's a follow up question. I'm going to the teacher perspective.
Yes.
So one of the things that teachers see and hear when we hear that is like, okay, so I'm going to get more PD, and most teachers are PD'd out.
mm,
Okay.
Right.
Because we're thrown so many different shotgun effect trainings without an
Yeah.
actual plan. So we're just
right.
sitting, okay, so I learning this, learning that, but I'm actually
Yeah.
never really given the time to execute it, to plan, right, to
Right.
study, to act and redo, and everything that we do in multi-million-dollar corporations, right? Which
Yeah.
we should be thinking of ourselves as a multi-million-dollar corporation. Our profit margin is our graduates that are actually prepared. So, from the teacher standpoint, I know teachers right now listening to us are saying,
Yes.
give me the how. Give me the how
Right.
without overwhelming me, because I still have my curriculum. And then we have a lot of teachers with their isms. And then you have your superintendents that have to enforce what you want. How do
Yes.
you get that done?
Okay. So, Dr. Pleasant, in my career, we have seen several of these come by night gimmicks come along, and in my world, I go, it soon shall pass. And so
Mhm.
usually we wait about 3 or 4 years, and then we're on to something new. Well, the thing and the beauty about the science of reading it is it's not something that is a fly by night option. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that is valuable to them. And when I don't know if it's a book company or somebody come out with a whole language, but typically people come out with new things so they can make money. And it really messed a generation of readers up when we did that. And if we can just be sustainable with what we're going to do, and quit going, well, this is the new fad.
Mm,
This is not a new fad. This is something that has been tried. And even in the 70s and 80s, when we did phonics, uh, our older generation are coming to me going, well, that's what we did back in school and it worked. So let's get something that we stick with, and not the new thing, and just focus on that itself. And it's not going to be one more thing. And I'll just truly say our teachers out there, and I would say 90% of them, because you can't say all, but 90% of them, including the teachers in my place, are always looking to do better. They want to find a way to reach a child. And the majority of your teachers are like that. If you can give them something that they can go, wow, that works. I can make a difference with that child.
mm,
They're going to do it. And I will just tell you, with what we're doing at my school with my teachers and what they tell me, it makes a difference. But they're always still looking for a little bit better thing or tweaking what they're doing to help a child. And
So I got
and honestly,
Mhm. No, no.
yeah, I yeah,
Yeah, no. I was waiting for you to say something, because my book of Science of Reading is coming in tomorrow. I've already ordered my book
yeah,
because I wanted to see, because I hear you say it a lot and it hasn't been introduced in my classroom. But I really I think the question teachers are going to have, and I'm going to have to dive deep into this, is
Sure.
how are you going to inspect what you expect from districts, because it comes down from the superintendent. And I get you right now. Teachers are saying, love it, love it.
Yes.
Tell me the
Yes.
how. They want to hear the how are you going to inspect what you expect from superintendents that's going to trickle down to us and our admin, because everybody has different agendas. And you may have
Right.
yours and it's nice and wonderful, but once it trickles down to me, it comes down
Yes.
through so much red tape that what
Yeah.
you'll want isn't going to hit the classroom. So that's what teachers want to hear. And I know it's challenging to have like that whole plan worked out by now, but teachers are thirsty. We want to know
They are.
how are
Yeah.
we going to have one line?
Hey, Lisa, go ahead and let me answer that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're doing is tried and true. And I think our teachers recognize that. And getting them the resources is probably the most important thing. And that's the how and why. And so we need to be ready to give the resources. And if when I change the assessments around to actually meet growth at the end of the year, that
Mm-hmm.
takes away the stigma of high stress test at the end. And really, you have new learning for 2 months. That's going to
Mhm.
free teachers up to actually do hands-on projects that kids love for the rest of their life that they remember. It brings excitement back to the classroom, and so we bring that together, and that excites schools. And superintendents, they want to find the best way to help their children. And but in every profession, there's always those few. But let's talk about the majority who really want
Mm-hmm.
to make the difference. And then it'll be my job to have accreditation officers who will go out and help. Right now, I live in a very punitive world where it's a gotcha thing instead of trying to go out and service and help. And I want to help these schools get to where they're at.
Mhm.
And so that's the how and why. And truly, somebody coming in this profession knowing they're going to make $40,000 first year out of college, they have a heart for service. It's not a heart for money. And so they're already where we want them. And our teachers that have been in it 25, 30 years, my teachers at my school who have been there that long, they're always asking, can we get more training? Can we get more help? Can we have more understanding? Because you just don't take one training in the science of reading and boom, you're perfect at it. They want continual training so that
Mm-hmm.
they can talk about it and discuss it among themselves. So, hey, I'm really excited, and really, honestly, I believe 90% of the teachers you're talking about, they are gung ho to do it, and we just have to give them the resources to be able to do it.
Good,
Awesome.
good question, Lisa. John, let's go back to the metrics. There's
Yes.
a lot of talk about how the metrics for where we are at nationwide is calculated. And at a discussion a couple of months ago, um, there's a discussion that homeschools were not part of the calculation. So I'm not sure how that factors in. So do you know how the numbers factor in? So some say we're not really 50th, we're really 40th, but
Yeah.
some don't know how those numbers are calculated. So can you give us like an overview of how those numbers are calculated and who's included? K through 12? Is it post
Sure.
high school? How does that look?
Well, and I don't want to give the secret away because when we go from 50 to 25, I want people to be amazed. But the thing is they actually use NAEP scores, National Assessment Educational Progress, NAEP. And NAEP actually tells you on their website, do not use this to compare schools. They actually tell you that, but we do. And so we test fourth and eighth graders across the state in math and reading.
Mhm.
And it's random. And basically, it's around 3% of our kids across the state. They generalize the results from that for every kid across the state. So automatically, it puts us down on the list. So towards 50 automatically, because think about it, if a teacher is not motivated to give the NAEP test because it's one more thing to do, because it is, and it interrupts their instruction of their class, and then they put that test in front of a child and they don't motivate the child to take the test, which that's what's happening. The child just takes it, boom, there's the results. Your results are not going to be very good. It's the same thing of the ACT. Before we required every student in the state to take the ACT, we were 2 points above the national average because the kids that took it were focused on going to college. Now we make everybody take it. So you have a majority of your kids who could care less about scoring on the ACT. And so when they take it, they bring down the scores. And so now we're 2 points below the national average because of that. So within that, and I know I veered away, but this is so important. I want to let the students who are going to college take the ACT, but the other ones, let's use the money we spend on the ACT to pay for their certification in a trades area. And then that can be the accountability piece for that student. So that's it. But the metrics on NAEP, if we go in and we motivate the teacher to give the test and the teacher motivates the kids and we can test prep the children at the same time to take the test and align our objectives with NAEP. So they're already studying that during the year. So it's no surprise. That's going to uplift us. And that's the big secret that I really don't want anybody to know, that we're going to do that and we're magically going to get better, but we are, because we're putting focus on the key things that's in there. But really, there's some things in that 50th in the nation that we have no control over. Lifestyles of kids after school, what they're doing, attendance wise, we have no control over attendance. That's up to the local district attorney and their truancy program. So there's some variables in there we really can't do nothing about, but we can sure raise these test scores.
Good answer. I think Sharla had a question.
Yeah, you're traveling around. You've probably been to every county by now. If not, we're almost halfway through to June, so you will be. What is something that you would like for us to know that you haven't been asked or haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
Oh my goodness, I'm asked everything. There's not one question, and I love it when nobody tells us what the questions are going to be, because then you can see a distinct difference between the candidates for this position. Because you can't make something up in 1 minute. And you're already lost. You can tell when somebody doesn't know what they're doing. So I love those questions where you have to speak on the cuff. I think the main thing I love most is that people are excited when I say the word phonics. It doesn't matter what group I'm in. It doesn't matter if I'm in churches or auditoriums or anything. When I say the word phonics, my generation gets excited about that. And I say my generation because I'm in my 60s, but that really inspires me to want to go out and help more. And so, Sharla, I don't know if there's a specific question that they don't ask, because I've been asked everything. But I don't know. Do you have one that you're curious about that we haven't
Yes,
answered?
I do. I'm glad that you asked.
I'll go after
Yeah.
Sharla.
Lisa, you go ahead. I'll ask mine when I wrap up.
Okay. So really quick, because we really haven't talked about the ESL population. And our
Yes.
ESL population, they're what I call the double dippers, because we get counted for them in multiple areas of the report card, right?
Right.
And so in different states, ESL kids that are new to country or they haven't received services, we don't test them the first 2 to 3 years, because at that point you're not testing knowledge, you're testing language. And so the kids need time to acquire the language. But right now we're testing them right off the cuff. And so ESL teachers like myself, we have to expedite everything, because now I'm an ESL ELA teacher. So I have all my ESL kids and I'm giving them ESL supports just like the law dictates. And so I have to figure out, how do I get my level ones to just be able to compete? So what do you think about not testing EL kids new in country, right? For the first 2, I'm going to push it 3 years, because it takes 7 years for language acquisition. What are your thoughts?
So this is a brilliant question, because it's so important what we do. And I see the struggles that those children have when they come to us. And this is a statewide concern. And so it's important that I tell you and the others involved with the ELLs that, I need this input. But I'll just say that if we move to a growth a growth testing, a growth assessment, we can actually just celebrate the successes of those children instead of putting a raw score up where they have to meet it, and then actually looking at the raw score after every child takes the test, and we have all their test scores back, and we go, how many kids are we going to fail this time? So we're going to put the number at 270, and we're going to fail these kids. Oh, let's move it to 280, and we'll fail more kids. That, and I've been in those committees where you actually set the raw scores. And my question to the one sitting there, and the state superintendent was in there one time when I did it, and I said, we're actually figuring out how many kids are going to fail. And they're going, no, that's not what we're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. So let's have a growth process, a growth assessment in math and reading so you can see how the child grows. And then immediately, that day, the teacher can look at that assessment and go, I need to change instruction this way to meet that child. And then we don't have the question that you just gave me. Because this ELL stuff, the WIDA program we got, oh my goodness. You know, why can't we get to one solid thing where we can say, this child is growing in this area and we need to help this child more in this other area? And then we solve all that. So
Absolutely.
that's where I'm at. And as state superintendent, that is what I will push and make happen. Not try to make happen. It has to happen.
I agree. It does have to happen. So I've got, this will be the last question before we close for the evening, and it has to do with the state budget. So I want to go ahead and play a clip at this weekend's Oklahoma GOP Governor's Forum when Chip Keating answered the question about the state budget and education. So hang on.
All right, we're going to the Chip, and again, this way, again, repeat, would you support and promote reducing the size of state government, and what areas do you believe could be eliminated or reduced?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You've heard me talk about what Arkansas did, 250 to 15, 380 agencies, boards, and commissions. Let's identify the biggest one and the biggest issue we haven't even talked on this stage about tonight. The failure of public education in our state. Over half of our taxpayer dollars goes to public education. The funding formula is grotesquely broken. There's no accountability in how we direct 509 school districts to spend the money. Under 50% of the dollars actually go in the classroom. Over 50% goes to overhead. If you take the carryover dollars that have been appropriated and are still sitting in the superintendent's system, it's actually 30% to the classroom. That is absolutely criminal. It is time to have courage to wake up and fix the funding formula. We've talked about 1 in 4 of our kids not being able to read. You'll hear on this campaign trail the Mississippi Miracle. My friends, miracles only come from God. There was nothing miraculous that happened in Mississippi. It was good public policy. They went from 50th to 17th. What we haven't talked about, it should have been called the Oklahoma Miracle. We wrote the Reading Proficiency Act in 2012. Mississippi implemented their version and stole a lot of what we put forward, and we repealed it in 2014. House Bill 2625. Look it up. That is absolutely outrageous. We're going to talk about courage, leadership, and where, I'm running against people that have been here a long time and had a chance to fix these problems. But this is exactly where we're going to get control of agency reform. We're starting with public education, and we're putting our kids first going forward.
Mike Mason.
So that was, I think, a good answer. So let's go ahead and start. Two-part question. The state budget. We know that the last time I looked at this, it was nearly 54% going towards education. And I know we've discussed this before. So how do we get and change the formula, as Chip was saying, to make it work for the teachers that are actually in the front lines?
Sure. There's a lot to unbundle in what he said, but and public school finance, that's my expertise. That's what I teach at the graduate level. So, and that's what I love and that's what I'm good at. So you can look at numbers a lot of different ways. I really want someone to define what is classroom cost. Right now, about 38% of the budget goes in pre-K through 12, and then the rest up to 52, 53% goes into the universities. So my area that I will be covering will be that 3.1 billion, 3.2 billion amount that we talk about. So um, the way that if you want to reduce superintendent salary, office of superintendent, right now we are capped at 4, 6, and 8%, depending on the size of the school. If you want to lower the superintendent's salaries, then you lower the percentage rate that they have. And that's how you do it. So in our schools, we're 8% is the most that you can do. The other things that are calculated within that, and it's so in the weeds, but you have paras that help with their special needs children. They're not counted as instruction. You have counselors. You have the people who provide the food for the kids every day, the cooks. They're not counted in there. Bus drivers who bring the children to school, they're not counted. And so once we define that, and I've watched this over the years, this debate of 60%, because that's what it was 15 years ago. We need to at least put 60% into the classroom. Well, if you have principals, principals aren't counted within that amount either. And principals are instructional. And so there's a lot of semantics that goes along with that. I think the whole key to this entire thing, though, is you have to get good board members who understand to hire a great superintendent who can divide those things down and put the resources in the classroom. That's what you have to do. It all begins on the local level. And as long as they can hire a good-minded superintendent who's good financially and knows how to do things instructional, then that's where this whole question lies. There's a lot of semantics in the things that Chip Keating said, but I live it every day. So I would say probably my school is probably 60% if you don't add in all those other things that they talked about. But once you start adding in paras and teacher assistants and librarians and all those different things, then actually you're more about 85, 90% anyways. But the way you solve this issue is just if they don't like superintendents making so much, lower the percentage that you can have in office of superintendent. It's really that simple. You can't go over it or you get penalized dollar for dollar. And so I think sometimes we get so focused on number of schools, because I was excited when Governor Stitt said in his state, we need more schools. He actually said that, and I just smiled and I thought, because he said we need more choice. And yes, we do need more choice. And we have charter schools that are, under 100 kids, but they perform a certain task for that population of children. And not just 509 schools, we have 539, and that includes your virtual charters and all those other public schools. So, and every one of them has to have a leader. And no matter how you divide it up, no matter how many superintendents you have, you still have to have a leader in that building or on that site. So there's a lot of semantics in there, but I think what I bring to the table is that I can have those discussions, an intelligent, eloquent discussion about where the money's going. And if you really want to see fluff, you got to look in large systems where are they precisely doing things? Are they duplicating jobs in those systems? But that local school board and that superintendent should be looking at those things to maximize the amount of money that's going into the classroom. And I'm talking about resources. I'm talking about trying to put things in there that can help that teacher teach. The way we do it at my school, I have an assistant in every classroom. Do that for two reasons. One is for safety, because I have another set of eyes in there. And the other reason is to actually help those kids that are struggling. And so that's where you put resources into a room. And so that's the value I bring to this office. I love what he has to say. I love what he said. We need to really focus on education, but there needs to be that strong conversation of how are we going to help a child?
Well, thank you, John. Sharla?
The fact that you don't have to have on-the-job training. I think you're already in the trenches in the classroom. You know what to do to get it done. I do have a question. I think that you probably haven't been asked yet. Two questions. So you said you have 2 grandbabies on the way. Are these your first grandkids?
No, I've got 6 that are on my push card, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but they're actually, his middle name's going to be John. And
Ah!
And so the millions of people out there watching right now, don't tell my son I said that. Because I'm waiting for it to be on the birth certificate. And you got to know how goosebumps that brings over you and how proud. And then in July, it's going to be another little granddaughter. And so, man,
Congratulations.
and I tell people I would jump in front of a moving bus to
Oh, yeah.
help to save them. And it's the same way with our children in our schools. That's the passion you have to have.
And I think Rarchar and both Dr. Elizabeth can attest to this. As I shared, I'm raising 3 grandkids, and being older and watching another generation comes up gives you more motivation than you ever had.
Oh,
There's days you think, where do I get the stamina to keep going? But it's them, because you see what short
Sharla,
of a time you have with them.
for someone to stand up and say, I'm the only one with children in school, so that's why I should be state superintendent. I just laugh at that because they just don't know yet. When
Right.
you got grandchildren, it's another level.
Mhm.
And you
Yes,
can
the
sure
kids say
take care of
clock
those
it.
parents that have their children.
And I know it
So
motivates
yeah.
Dr. Elizabeth. And so the other question I have is, you shared your age with us. So what was the #1 song on the radio when you graduated high school?
No way. I don't know. I, because it's
Mine
weird. I would,
was video kill the radio star. So
oh,
that was
Oh, I
you're going to make
remember
that
me
was
that.
the
study.
#1.
I
Wow.
remember
I don't
going
remember
over to my
either.
friend's house and watching Michael Jackson Thriller because we didn't have cable.
Or
Oh,
Wang Chung Tonight. So come on, John. What was the
he
one on
dropped
the
a bomb on
radio?
me. Yeah.
Okay, there
So,
you go.
But I
oh
was
my
the
Did you
nerdy
goodness.
see?
kid. I listened to KCFO in Tulsa, so it was all
Yeah.
Christian
I'm going to
music.
go
So
look that up. So next time I'm on here, you'll ask me that, and man, I'll have that answer.
One
well,
thing I would
thank
like you to do. Wait, hold on a second. I would look. If you can teach us how to put together IKEA furniture, I will be your best friend for the rest of your life. And so, so when we
I
talk
have
about
bruised knuckles from that.
we talk about technical manuals. So look, the biggest thing for our kids today. So, I pushed for the VOTEC funding here in Warren Norman a couple of years ago, and I believe strongly in VOTEC.
Oh,
Reading
#1 in the
comprehension.
nation.
Exactly. And so, the next time you come on the show, we would like to talk about the VOTEC funding and where the state
Yeah.
superintendent position stays on that, because as an alternative for to not go to college, I think VOTEC schools are the next best thing, where, like the military, we can take a high schooler, go through 3 years of VOTEC, coming out, and he's earning, or she earning, $70,000 in the
Yeah.
most
And not the
critical
next
career
best
fields.
thing, the best thing. Not the next
Yeah.
best thing, but the best thing.
Mhm.
Aviation, I retired from the Air Force.
Yeah.
Aviation is the new, is the industry that's going to lead Oklahoma, right behind energy. But we are
It
over
is.
8 minutes over we are at the mark where we have to go ahead and close the show. And I'm going to throw it back to Sharla, since she is the chair of the Comanche County GOP, and even though I'm the host of the podcast, she has the last word.
interestingly, the one comment we got tonight was phonics. So you said people get excited when you say that. That was already
Yeah.
shared long before you mentioned it. So as we close tonight, I want to thank my co-host Rarchar Tortorello for joining me, and extend our appreciation to Dr. Cox for being with us, sharing
Thank
his
you.
vision in Oklahoma education. Dr. Pleasant, thank you as well for your continued engagement in these conversations. I love you. To everyone watching, thank you for tuning in and participating. Comanche County Republicans meet every third Tuesday for our GOP luncheon and evening gathering through May at the Lawton Country Club. We love for you to join us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next Sunday at 8 o'clock.
Bye.